Hi, this is Justin with More Business Today, and I just wanted to take a minute and cover how to run an update on WordPress in the manner that is least likely to create problems. I want to acknowledge up front that I have a bias on this. I don't believe that it's something that most people should be doing on their own. If you didn't build the website, then you're at a significant disadvantage in doing the updates. It is something that needs to happen a lot, that you need to have updates. The WordPress needs to be updated a lot, and it is an important thing to do. But I do believe that it's better done on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis at latest, preferably by the person who developed the site, but if not, by an expert. And that's a service that I offer, so that's my bias that I come in with. But I just want to give you an overview because I have a real specific set of things that need to happen in order to not break your site while you update it. While it's super easy to update WordPress, it's only a matter of clicking a couple of buttons the way they have it set up. It is real easy to break your site in that process. So I think that it's the most likely time for you to break your site is using WordPress. Now, before we do any of the update stuff, it's important that you're able to back up your site. And the thing that people miss most often with the backup is not only are you able to back up your site, but you need to understand what is involved in restoring it. And that's what people miss a lot of times, because you can go in on the plugins, if you do an add new plugin, and you can type in backup and you'll find a bunch of plugins for backing up your site or backing up your database. Well, if you don't know how to this is one word, I think, restore the backup once you have it downloaded, you need to look through their FAQs, look through the information, and make sure that you understand how to restore it. So even though it says backup and restore and restoration, they a lot of times make the assumption that you can log in, create a database, export files, a bunch of functions that a lot of people aren't real familiar with. So you need to be certain that you can back up and restore. And there are some backup systems built in, managed WordPress systems, for instance, that have one-click backup, one-click restores, and daily backup, automatic backups. And so if you're using one of those systems, and you're confident in it, then you don't need to worry about this step. But otherwise, you need to be sure that your process, both for backing up and restoring, is something that you understand how to do. Because if you back it up and then something goes wrong, and at that step you have to find someone to do the restore for you, well, your site's going to be offline for a long time that way. So the first thing that we focus on when we're actually going to do the update, so we're getting back to the update, and we're assuming that the site is fully backed up. The other thing too is that when you hit update on WordPress, it's going to give you a warning and say, make sure you back up the database. And that's an interesting database. No, now it says database and files, and so then it's a link, and it'll tell you more information here. So it gives you, it says important, before backing up, please back up here, or before updating, do this first. One of the things it doesn't tell you to do is that you should update your plugins before your core WordPress installation, but I'll get to that in a second. Before you do any updates, after you have your backup situation understood, then the next thing that is a good thing to do is go through your plugins. The plugins are like little programs. They add functionality to your WordPress, and for each plugin you need to know what it does, where it is, what it's affecting on your site, and then also whether it's compatible with the version of WordPress that you're upgrading to. So in this case we'd be upgrading to 4.41. So if I hit view details, on contact form 7, it says compatible up to 4.41, so we know that it's compatible. Now if I look at another one, this custom menu shortcode, it says compatible to 3.32. Well, this is a good example of a plugin that if I left it in place and just hit the updates, updated this one, updated, well actually this one won't update because it doesn't have an update, but updated WordPress and left this alone, there's a good possibility that that page fails, or that the whole site you can't log in at all. Those are the kinds of things that'll happen when you have a conflict with a plugin that's expired. So in that case, what I would need to do is I would need to know what this does, where it's being used on the site, and then I would have to replace it with another plugin that'll do the same thing. And this process, we'd actually know where it is on the site, deactivate this plugin, delete this plugin, and then we do that before we start running the updates. And we'd run both the rest of the plugins and WordPress, and then replace it after we have the new version of WordPress. We wouldn't replace the plugin with an old version of WordPress unless it was real close. So if this is like WordPress, depending on what version you're at. So if this was WordPress 3.1, we'd probably just go ahead and replace the plugin. If this WordPress 4.3 point something, then we just do it that way. But if this is WordPress like 3.5 or something, then we would want to do the updates first, if that makes sense. So back to the plugins. Once you've gone through the plugins, you can see this isn't atypical. It may be a little high as far as the number of plugins. We have 27 plugins, 20 active plugins. I would say that's fairly common. I'd say between 15 and 20 isn't uncommon at all. And any plugins that aren't being used at all, then we delete them. There are going to be plugins that are specific to functionality other than things that you can see, like analytics and search engine optimization and that kind of stuff. But once you understand what all the plugins are and what they do, and so that's probably the first stumbling block for someone who's non-technical, is that could take several hours if you didn't develop the site. I can look over the site and know exactly what the different plugins do because they're plugins I used when I set it up. But and also this technobabble makes sense to me, but someone else coming in from scratch and learning it, you would have to go through and understand it. If you don't, the risk is that you update a plugin. At very least, you need to be able to look at it at the plugins that are going to cause you problems, like I showed you, and figure out what those do and replace them or remove the functionality. It's possible, like the custom menu, there's a custom menu that relates to on the site, and then I would need to go in, find that, and I could just delete it altogether. The other thing too is it'd be a good idea to have a maintenance plugin installed, which would allow you to put it into maintenance mode so that people don't see everything when you're logged in, but people from the outside would say you see that the site's under maintenance, and so they wouldn't see things kind of being in disarray. So once we are confident that the plugins that we have are going to survive the update, they're not going to be a problem, then I'm going to go over to the update page, and the other thing that we do is look at the order. So we want to update things in a certain order. We want to update the plugins first, and then the core version of WordPress. And that's the methodology that I've found to be least likely to create problems, is to do the plugins first and then the core WordPress. So, because one of the things that'll happen when there's a conflict is that WordPress, this admin panel, will stop loading, and then when it stops loading, then you're kind of in trouble. You'll have to have someone technical go in to the back end, into the files, and remove all of the plugin folders, and then that makes it so that it'll go ahead and load despite the conflict. And then but what I've seen is that when you update the plugins first, then that rarely happens. So we update all the plugins, even the ones that are deactivated, and then we update. Once we hit update here, then it would update the plugins one by one, and then we do update now on WordPress itself, which is what this one is. And you can also update the themes. You can do those in any sequence, especially if you're not using one of these themes. It won't matter as much. If you're using one of the themes, then you need to follow the instructions by that theme provider on how to update it. But as far as the sequence for it, it should work out as the last thing. Once the plugins and WordPress are installed, then you need to go through your site, look through all the pages and make sure that everything's functioning correctly. And one of the telltale signs if things aren't is that you'll see shortcodes in the page. Shortcodes are those little square brackets with something in there. It's a shortcode. So if you see any of those kind of hanging around on the content, then whatever plugin uses those shortcodes is not functioning, so it's not replacing that. So that's all of the kind of steps in a nutshell on how to run the update securely, the things that you should understand to run it securely and stay out of trouble. So I just wanted to put that out there. If you don't understand the instructions, then that, in my opinion, that's an indication that you'll need to go through a lot of training to learn how to do it, or a more effective use of your time and money is probably to hire someone that you trust to run updates on a regular basis and monitor your site for problems. So hopefully that was helpful. And on the training side, if you want to learn about WordPress, YouTube is full of videos. There's probably over 1 million videos for WordPress, I would bet. So you can learn a lot on YouTube. If you want to spend the time watching the YouTube videos and learning how to do it. I would say that you want to focus on newer videos when you're using a newer install of WordPress, assuming you're using a newer version of WordPress, because WordPress goes through a lot of changes, and so the WordPress of today is quite a bit different than the WordPress of 2 years ago and stuff. So I appreciate your time. Hopefully this was useful. Thank you.